4 minutes and 12 seconds. That's how long it took my father to threaten to cut me out of his will. I remember checking the call timer the second I hung up. Then I laughed. Not a small laugh. Not a polite laugh. One of those deep, body-shaking laughs that ends with tears sliding down your cheeks. Not from joy, but from the sheer absurdity of it all. I was sitting cross-legged on the floor of my sunlit apartment in Bozeman, Montana, sipping coffee with oat milk and cinnamon. There was snow outside, mountains in the distance, and for the first time in my life, I felt entirely free. They hadn't noticed I was gone for 7 months. 7 months since I packed my things, quit my job in Kansas City, accepted a remote position with a research institute, and drove west with no real plan. Just a deep, aching need to vanish. Now suddenly, they wanted me back. Not for love, not to ask how I was doing, but because Ryan, the golden boy, was getting married, and his fiancée's parents had found out he had a sister. A sister they'd never met. A sister who hadn't been invited to the engagement party, or the birthday brunches, or the holidays. Me. That day 7 months ago, cardboard boxes had lined the walls of my apartment. Not memory boxes, not keepsakes, just the essentials. A laptop, some clothes, my sketchbooks, my survival. My best friend Tamika had dropped the last box of notebooks at the door and wiped her forehead with the back of her sleeve. "You really doing this, Camille?" she asked. "I really am. You're not gonna tell them?" "Nope, they're your family." I'd paused with the packing tape halfway through a roll. "No, they're my relatives. Family shows up. Family sees you. They haven't seen me in 29 years. She didn't argue. She just pulled me into a hug that smelled like lemon balm and lavender. I held on for a long time. The thing is, I didn't move to hurt them. I moved to survive, to start over, to build a life where I didn't feel like a ghost sitting at the dinner table while everyone talked around me. And now, after all this time, they finally remembered I existed. Because they needed something. Because I was useful, and they thought they could still summon me with a command. They had no idea who I'd become without them. And I couldn't wait to keep it that way. People say things like all families are complicated or your parents did the best they could. That's cute, but when your entire childhood feels like an audition for love you never get, those phrases hit differently. Ryan was born 2 years before me, and from the moment I was old enough to observe anything, I understood one thing. He was everything, and I was extra. When he got a C on his math test, they blamed the teacher. When I got an A+, they told me not to brag. At 10 years old, I won a statewide art competition for middle schoolers. My piece, a charcoal drawing of the abandoned barn near our backyard, was displayed in the local gallery. I was the youngest finalist. My teacher was so excited, she called my parents to say I had real talent. That night at dinner, I held the certificate on my lap under the table, waiting for them to say something. They didn't. Instead, they spent 30 minutes dissecting Ryan's Pee-wee football scrimmage, where he almost made a touchdown. I went to bed early that night, cried into my pillow, and told no one. By the time I turned 15, I'd stopped expecting praise. I made honor roll 6 semesters in a row. I designed the cover for our school's yearbook. I even started tutoring other students in coding. Still nothing. Then came the college conversation. My parents were thrilled to pay for Ryan's private college, tuition, dorm, monthly allowance, the works. When it was my turn, they sat me down for a realistic talk. "We spent most of our college savings on Ryan," Dad had said. "But you're resourceful. We know you'll figure it out." Mom added, "You're the independent one, Camille." And like always, I did figure it out. Full scholarship in data science. Took on 2 part-time jobs. Lived in a shared dorm with no heating for a winter and didn't tell anyone. I worked until my hands cramped and studied until my eyes burned. And still, not a single visit. No calls. Just a generic happy birthday text from Mom once a year. Tamika and my roommate Marley became my real family. They listened, celebrated my small wins, showed up with soup when I got sick. I slowly stopped coming home for holidays. Stopped trying to explain myself. Stopped needing them to be what they never were. So when I left Kansas City for Bozeman, I didn't tell them. Not out of spite, but because ghosts don't leave farewell notes. They just disappear. Bozeman didn't just feel like a new city. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath for 29 years. My apartment wasn't glamorous. It had creaky floorboards, a drafty window in the kitchen, and mismatched tile in the bathroom. But it was mine. Mine to decorate. Mine to wake up in. Mine to feel safe inside. And the view? Just beyond the balcony railing, snow-capped peaks stretched like sleeping giants. In the morning, they glowed pink with sunrise. By evening, they shimmered beneath streaks of lavender sky. My job as a data visualization specialist at the Northwestern Environmental Research Institute started 2 weeks after I arrived. Fully remote, collaborative, meaningful. The kind of work I once dreamed about while coding alone in a freezing dorm room. My manager, Bethany, was sharp but warm. She actually read my reports. My teammates were scattered across the country, but during team calls, I wasn't invisible. They asked about my weekend, shared photos of their pets, celebrated when I finished a big project. I finally understood what it felt like to belong. Even grocery shopping felt peaceful now. No judgmental eyes, no fake smiles from relatives asking surface-level questions at family dinners. Just me, the rhythm of routines I chose, and the quiet luxury of being enough. On Sundays, I'd drive 20 minutes out of town to a trail called Beartooth Bend. It wound along the riverbank and ended at a little bluff with a view so breathtaking, it almost felt unreal. I'd sit there for hours, sometimes with a sketchbook, sometimes with nothing but silence. One afternoon, as I sipped tea on the balcony with a throw blanket around my shoulders, my phone buzzed. "Grandma Lorraine," I answered instantly. "Hi sweetheart," she said, voice warm and steady. "I just wanted to check in. How's your new home?" "It's beautiful," I told her, looking out at the gold-streaked sky. "I think I finally found somewhere I don't feel like I have to shrink to fit in." She chuckled softly. "I always knew you'd make something wonderful of your life. I just wish your parents had seen it, too." I swallowed hard. "They never looked," I whispered. "They never knew how," she replied. "But I see you. Always have." I blinked fast, suddenly overwhelmed. "Thank you." We stayed on the phone for nearly an hour, talking about the trails I hiked, the pasta I made from scratch, the way I finally slept through the night. When we hung up, I looked around my apartment, walls bare, books stacked, string lights gently glowing, and thought, this isn't just a new chapter. It's my story now, and I'm the one holding the pen. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, while I was in the middle of building a visualization model for glacier recession rates. My phone vibrated with an unfamiliar number. I usually let unknown calls go to voicemail, but some strange flicker of instinct, made me answer. "Camille," my father's voice, still stern, still clipped, as if you were calling an employee who forgot a deadline. I blinked. "Hi, you need to come home next weekend. Saturday night, dinner's at 7. That was it. No how are you, no where have you been. Just a demand, served like a court summons. I leaned back in my chair. What dinner? Ryan's fiance's family is flying in from Atlanta. They're traditional people. They value family. They want to meet his sister. We can't have them thinking you're some estranged weirdo." I almost choked. "So now I exist?" "Camille, don't start." "No, I'm genuinely curious," I interrupted. "Because for years, I was just the other one. And now suddenly I'm important, for optics?" A pause. Then, in that same unbothered tone, "It's not about optics. It's about Ryan's future. Don't be selfish." I laughed, and not a little chuckle. A full, unfiltered, wild kind of laugh that took over my entire chest. "What's funny?" he snapped. "You," I said. "This whole conversation. This family." "Camille," he warned. "If you refuse to come, if you keep pulling these stunts, I will cut you out of the will. You won't see a cent." I stopped laughing, but I was still smiling. "You're going to disinherit me?" I said calmly. "That's adorable." "Excuse me? I moved to Montana 7 months ago. Got a raise. I make more money than you, Mom, and Ryan combined. I own my life now. So keep your will." There was dead silence. Then he exploded. "You moved across the country and didn't tell us? What kind of daughter does that? We're your family." "Really?" I asked. "Then tell me where I lived the last 3 years." More silence. "That's what I thought." And with that, I ended the call. Within minutes, the storm began. Missed calls from Dad, then Mom, then Ryan, texts piling in, demands wrapped in guilt, pleas disguised as concern. I turned my phone face down on the table. Then I made dinner. Real dinner. Baked salmon with lemon thyme and couscous. As I ate in quiet, watching the mountains fade into night, I whispered to myself, I don't belong to them anymore. 3 days later, my phone rang again. This time, I picked up. Hi sweetheart, Grandma Lorraine said gently. I just wanted to check in, and also tell you what happened at the dinner. I curled up on the couch, pulling a soft blanket over my legs. Go on. It was awkward from the start, she said, voice tight with second-hand embarrassment. Your parents were stiff. Ryan was fidgety. And his fiancé's family? They noticed. Noticed what? That something, or someone, was missing. I bit my lip. They asked about you right away, she continued. Your parents gave 3 different answers within 10 minutes. First, they said you were sick. Then they said you were on a business trip. Then your mother slipped and said you moved out of state for some tech thing. I let out a dry laugh. Sounds about right. It didn't help that Ryan's fiancé's father is a retired federal judge. Apparently, he and his wife had done a little research after hearing they'd never met the bride's only aunt. My chest tightened. They looked me up? I think they saw your LinkedIn, your portfolio website, your research contributions. They were impressed. And confused. Silence stretched between us. Camille, they asked your parents directly why you hadn't been included in the engagement party. Why you weren't mentioned in speeches. Why there were no photos of you in the house. And what did they say? They stumbled. They said you liked your privacy, and that you distanced yourself. I scoffed. That part's true. They didn't believe it. They told your parents it sounded like you'd been erased. And they were deeply uncomfortable with the whole situation. For a long time, I didn't say anything. Then I asked, did they talk to Ryan? Grandma hesitated. I think so. I wasn't there for that part. But his fiancée looked upset during dinner. Barely touched her food. Ryan kept checking his phone. Was he hoping I'd show up? I asked softly. Maybe, she said. Or maybe he realized that lies don't hold up very well under pressure. I looked out the window. A quiet snowfall had begun, blanketing the pine trees behind my building. Soft, beautiful, peaceful. You didn't do anything wrong, Camille, Grandma added. They're just realizing what happens when you build your life on exclusion. I nodded slowly. They're uncomfortable now, because the people they want to impress see right through them. Yes, she said, and the truth has a funny way of showing up, especially when you're not invited. I smiled faintly, the kind of smile that feels like the start of something solid. Thank you for telling me. Anytime, sweetheart. We hung up, and for the first time in a long time, I felt seen without having to be in the room. That night, I got the first message. Unknown number. Camille, I know you blocked our phones. I just got a new number. We need to talk, please. I stared at it for a full minute, then deleted it without replying. 5 minutes later. The in-laws are asking questions. This is affecting everything. Please just call me back. Delete. Then. I know we messed up. I'm sorry. We all are. Can we talk? Delete. I turned off my phone and sat on the floor of my living room with a mug of tea, watching the snowfall drift gently past the windows. I didn't feel angry, or satisfied, or even vindicated. I felt nothing, and that nothing was louder than any apology they could send. 2 days later, Grandma called again. I picked up immediately. I thought you'd want an update, she said. Let me guess, things are getting worse? Worse is an understatement, she sighed. Ryan's fiancé's parents are still furious. Apparently, they're delaying wedding payments until family issues are addressed. I blinked. They actually said that? Word for word. A strange mixture of awe and disbelief bubbled in my chest. They've also asked to meet you privately, Grandma continued. Said they'd prefer to hear from you directly about what happened. I shook my head. Nope, I'm not giving them that performance. I figured, she said. Just thought you should know. Oh, and your mother's been calling every cousin, trying to get your address. I rolled my eyes. I'm guessing she's not telling them the truth either. She's telling people that you're mad over nothing and being dramatic. Classic. Later that week, a handwritten envelope showed up at my job. No return address. Just my name in shaky cursive. I opened it halfway, recognized my mother's handwriting, and without reading a single word, walked it straight to the shredder. I didn't owe her closure. I didn't owe any of them access. They weren't sorry for how they treated me. They were sorry for the consequences. For the spotlight turning cold. For their image cracking. They were scrambling not because they missed me, but because I was the one thing they couldn't control anymore. And they hated that more than anything. That night, I closed every curtain, locked my doors, poured a glass of wine, and whispered aloud the words I needed to hear. You don't have to go back. You don't have to fix what you didn't break. I found the house on a sleepy Thursday morning, during a break between team calls. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a wraparound porch, and a little fenced yard with wildflowers poking through the late spring soil. It sat on a quiet street just outside Bozeman, hugged by pine trees and facing a distant ridge line. The photos made my chest ache in the best way. By Saturday afternoon, I was touring it in person. The wood floors creaked just slightly. The kitchen smelled like cedar and sunlight. And when I stepped into the room that would become my home office, I didn't have to picture myself there. I already felt it. The offer went through in 3 days. I put down 20% with the savings I'd been quietly building since college. Money no one had helped me earn. Every dollar was mine. Every decision, mine. 2 weeks later, I moved in with a rented truck and a heart that beat steady for the first time in years. I bought a coffee table that wasn't secondhand. Installed soft lighting. Hung a painting I'd made years ago. The same one my mother once called a waste of time. And then, on a sleepy Wednesday afternoon, I adopted a dog. A rescue mutt with big amber eyes and a lopsided grin. I named her Clover. She followed me from room to room for days, like she couldn't believe we both finally had a place to belong. One evening, as I grilled veggies on the back porch and Clover laid curled up nearby, a coworker called to finalize a project timeline. As we wrapped up, she asked casually, "Hey, by the way, do you have siblings?" I paused only for a second. "No," I said with a smile in my voice. "It's just me." She didn't press, just said cool, and kept going. And just like that, the past lost another piece of its power. I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't keeping tabs on texts or waiting for their guilt to look like growth. I had a mortgage, a dog, a front porch swing, and a soft blue office chair that cradled me while I coded quietly through the afternoons. Tamika and Marley were flying in next month for a visit. I was already planning meals, picking flowers, choosing blankets for the guest room. This wasn't a new chapter. This was the book I was finally writing for myself. And for the first time in my entire life, it didn't include anyone who made me feel small. 6 months later, I got promoted. My manager called it long overdue. I was now the lead visualization architect for our institute's largest climate model to date. The pay bump? Generous. The recognition? Satisfying. But the best part was something quieter. I finally felt like I mattered in a space that didn't ask me to shrink. To celebrate, I bought myself a new car. Nothing flashy. Just something reliable, something mine. I took a solo trip to Iceland. Spent hours walking along black sand beaches. Sent Grandma Lorraine a postcard from every town I passed through. She called me while I was sitting at a cafe in Reykjavik. "You're living your best life, sweetheart," she said. "I really am, Grandma." And I meant it. When I got back to Bozeman, there was a certified letter waiting for me in my mailbox. No return address. I opened it on instinct, and regretted it immediately. It was from my father. 5 pages. Rambling. Contradictory. Apologetic but also defensive. Somewhere in the middle, he wrote, "We never meant to hurt you. We just didn't know how to deal with someone like you. Like me." At the bottom, in shaky cursive, was a final sentence. "We're adding you back into the estate, if you're willing to come back into the family." I folded the letter once. Then I dropped it into the fire pit in my backyard and watched it turn to ash. I didn't need their money. I didn't need their version of family. I had a life so solid, so peaceful, so mine, they couldn't touch it anymore. A week later, Grandma called again. "I thought you'd want to know. Ryan's marriage is in trouble." I raised an eyebrow. "Already?" Apparently the bride's parents still aren't over what happened. They keep asking questions. asking why no one ever mentioned you, why the family feels so fractured. I leaned back in my porch chair, Clover asleep at my feet. Sounds like the truth is still echoing. It is, she said. And your parents, they're unraveling. They still don't understand what they did wrong. They probably never will, but I do, she said. And I just want you to know, Camille, I've always seen you. And I'm proud of you. Not just for your career or your house, but for saving yourself. Tears welled in my eyes. Thank you, Grandma, for never making me beg to be loved. After we hung up, I walked through my house. The creaky floors, the soft lamplight, the quiet hum of Clover's breathing. And I smiled, not out of revenge, not because they were suffering, but because I wasn't. I was free, no more trying to fit into their story. I was finally living mine. And the greatest inheritance they never gave me was the strength to never need them again.